I opened the front door and froze. She stood there in the driveway. My wife, Emily, wearing tight jeans she hadn't worn in months and a smug grin that didn't belong in a marriage. But that wasn't the part that twisted my gut. No. Behind her, leaning against a brand new black Escalade like he owned the damn world, stood a man I'd never seen before. Tall, tan, hair too perfect to be real. One arm casually wrapped around two kids who looked just old enough to understand betrayal. And just behind them, my son Noah, clinging to the doorway with wide, confused eyes. Emily didn't even wait for me to speak. She tossed her long, bleach blonde hair over her shoulder and said, "Mark, meet Jason and his boys. They'll be staying here for a bit. I think it's time we stop pretending." I laughed. Not the funny kind, the broken, sharp, hollow kind that echoes from a place deep inside you. Pretending what exactly? She walked right past me. Didn't even flinch. Jason followed, kids in tow, dragging in suitcases like they'd moved in before asking. "You and I," she said, tossing her purse on the couch. "We've been done for a long time. You're just too blind to admit it." Noah stepped beside me, his hand trembling as he gripped my arm. "Dad, why is he here?" Emily glanced back, smug, because he's the one keeping me warm now. That sentence didn't just hit me, it detonated something inside. I should have seen it coming. The late nights, the sudden gym obsession, the new underwear tag still on never meant for me. The way she'd look at her phone and smirk, like it whispered dirty secrets only she could hear. But I was stupid. I thought maybe we were just going through a rough patch. That if I kept being the stable one, the provider, the protector, she'd come back around. Turns out, she already had someone else wrapping their arms around her while I sat in the next room, holding this marriage together like duct tape on a sinking ship. "Jason's boys are nice," she added with a fake grin. "Maybe they'll help Noah be less soft." That was it. That's when something inside me snapped. But before I could speak, before I could even breathe, Noah stepped forward. My 12-year-old son with eyes just like mine, but stronger in that moment than I'd ever been. He pointed straight at Emily and said, "Loud enough for the whole damn neighborhood to hear? You're not my mom anymore." She blinked, taken off guard for the first time since she stepped out of that SUV. "I saw your messages," he continued, voice shaking but growing stronger. "You told Jason you wanted to get rid of me because I remind you of Dad. You call me a roadblock." Jason shifted uncomfortably. Emily's face turned pale, then red, then twisted into something venomous. "You little brat," she spat. "You had no right. He had every right," I said, stepping forward. "Because while you were playing house with some discount Ken doll, he was watching everything fall apart and wondering why you didn't love us anymore." She looked at me like I was a bug under her heel. "Oh, please, don't make this dramatic. You were boring, Mark. Predictable. I needed a man who made me feel something again." "Feel something?" I said, staring at the man who hadn't said a word yet. "You mean this clown?" Jason finally stepped up, voice smooth like he'd practiced it in a mirror. "Look, man, it's not personal. Emily deserves to be happy." I almost laughed again, but my fists were clenched too tight. "I hope she makes you as happy as she made me," I said coldly. "Because eventually she'll turn on you too. She always does. And when she does, I'll be there laughing." Emily rolled her eyes and walked toward the kitchen. "Whatever, you'll hear from my lawyer. I'm done talking." But she wasn't done. Not even close. And neither was I. Because I had one more move to make something she never saw coming. And it started with a file I'd hidden in the bedroom drawer. One that contained every secret she thought she'd buried. I walked down the hall to our bedroom no. My bedroom no-end opened the top drawer of the nightstand. Beneath a stack of old birthday cards and charger cables was the manila folder I'd been adding to for the last 3 months. I never wanted to believe I'd use it. I wanted to be wrong, but I wasn't. Screenshots. Bank statements. A hotel receipt from a weekend I was out of town visiting my mother in Michigan. Emily had told me she was sick. Turns out, she was getting comforted at the Hilton by Jason. Even a couple of printed Instagram DMs Jason had sent to one of Emily's friends, bragging about stealing her from her loser husband. I had proof. All of it. I walked back out into the living room. Jason was lounging on my couch like he paid the mortgage, flipping through channels. His kids had started raiding Noah's snacks in the kitchen like they owned the place. Noah sat stiffly at the edge of the stairs, still in shock, still quiet, but burning. I could see it in his eyes. Emily glanced at the folder in my hands and rolled her eyes. "What, you printing memes now?" "Something like that," I said. She snatched it out of my hands, flipped it open, and the smirk vanished in less than a second. "You've been spying on me," she barked. "No," I replied. "I was collecting evidence. There's a difference. And now I've got enough to make sure you don't walk away with a single thing but your cheap boyfriend and his snack thief kids." She threw the folder down on the table. Paper scattered. Jason stood up. "Hey, look, man," he said, trying to sound calm. "Maybe we should take this somewhere else." "No," I snapped. "You walked into my home. You brought your mess into my family. You made it public, so let's keep it public." Emily's voice turned venomous again. "You don't have a clue what I've been through. You were never there for me emotionally. I was dead. You just sat there fixing things around the house, being a good little Boy Scout while I rotted inside." "You didn't rot," I shot back. "You wandered. There's a difference." And then Jason tried to put a hand on my shoulder. "You need to calm down, bro." The way he said bro lit a fuse in me I didn't know existed. I slapped his hand off and stepped into his space. "Say that again. See how calm I stay." He backed off. Emily, now flustered, went for the only weapon she had left. "You think a judge will side with you when you're threatening people in front of your kid?" "I'm not threatening," I said. "I'm done. That's different too." And then right there, in the middle of this disaster, Noah spoke again. "Can I stay with you, Dad?" he asked, voice small. "Real." Emily spun to him. "What? No, you're not picking sides." "I already did," he said. "The moment you brought them in here like we didn't matter." Jason's kids, sensing the shift, looked unsure. One of them, probably around 9, whispered something to him. He bent down, nodding. Emily, meanwhile, had crossed a line no court document could erase. She grabbed Noah by the arm. "You're confused. I'm your mother. You don't talk to me like that." I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just stepped forward and said, "Take your hands off my son." She froze. I'd never used that tone with her before. It was cold. Final. She let go. Jason exhaled like he just realized what he stepped into. "Maybe we should go." "Maybe you should have thought about that before you walked into another man's house with your toy and a welcome mat," I snapped. Emily grabbed her bag. "This isn't over." "I know," I said. "It's just starting." As they walked out, Jason's younger kid looked back at Noah and gave a tiny wave. Noah didn't return it. Just watched them drive off, like he was burning the memory into his brain forever. I closed the door, locked it. Then I turned and looked at Noah. "I'm sorry," I said. "You didn't deserve this." He hugged me tight, like he knew I was all he had now. And I realized I wasn't the one who lost everything. She was, and she didn't even know it yet. The next morning was quiet. Not peaceful, just the kind of quiet that wraps around your neck and doesn't let go. The kind that follows a storm, when everything's been thrown around and you're standing in the wreckage, trying to pretend it's still a home. Noah didn't go to school. I didn't make him. Instead, we sat at the kitchen table, sipping cocoa like two survivors of the same shipwreck. He didn't ask about Emily, neither did I. But I knew the questions were eating him alive, just like mine were. Around noon, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Your behavior last night was abusive. You're unstable. I've already contacted a lawyer. I'll be picking up my things with police presence. Do not contact me again. I read it twice, then showed it to Noah. He blinked at it, then whispered, She really said you were abusive? Yeah, I said. After everything she pulled? Liar, he muttered. That word stuck with me simple. Accurate. She lied like she breathed, naturally, constantly, without remorse. But I wasn't going to sit around and let her twist the story into some victim act. She could play the role for her new boyfriend, for the court, for her gossip circle friends. But I had the truth. I had documents, timestamps, messages. I had Noah. That was enough. 2 days later, she showed up with 2 cops. Not even a warning, just knocked on the door like she hadn't shattered our lives and expected me to open up like a good little doormat. She stood there with oversized sunglasses and a fake-ass frown, clutching a tote bag like it was her dignity. One of the officers asked, Are you Mark Taylor? I nodded. Ma'am would like to retrieve personal items. Can you allow us entry in a few minutes to supervise the process? I looked at Emily. You need bodyguards now? She smiled. I'm protecting myself. You should have done that before climbing into Jason's car. The officer stepped between us. Let's keep it respectful. I stepped back. By all means, let the lady of the hour reclaim her thongs and lies. She walked in like she still owned the place, went straight upstairs, and didn't even glance at the family photos on the wall. That hurt more than I expected. I thought maybe there'd be a flicker of regret in her eyes, something, but she'd already checked out. While she was in the bedroom, I went to the fridge and grabbed a bottle of water. One of the cops lingered near the stairs, looking awkward. Then I heard her muttering, loud enough to carry down. Oh, this place smells like failure. How did I live here this long? I took a breath, held it, let it burn. She came down with 2 bags stuffed with clothes, cosmetics, and something that looked suspiciously like one of my watches. I pointed. That's mine. Please, she snorted. You never wore it. I will now. The officer looked at her. Ma'am, if that item was purchased by him, you'll need to leave it. She huffed, pulled it off her wrist, and tossed it on the couch like it was contaminated. Then she turned to me and said, Jason's already planning to propose. I stared at her, silent. Just thought you should know. So you can start moving on. I smiled, cold. I already have. She blinked. That hit just a little. And then, as if the universe had a sense of humor, Noah came downstairs holding something in his hand. It was the framed photo of the 3 of us from his 5th birthday, him with frosting on his nose, Emily kissing his cheek, me holding them both. He handed it to her. She looked confused. What's this? He said. Keep it, so you remember what you threw away. Then he turned around and walked outside. One of the officers coughed and said, That's everything, ma'am. We're done here. She didn't say another word, just followed them out, clutching that photo like it stung. I watched from the doorway as they disappeared down the driveway, and for the first time since this all began, I didn't feel broken. I felt something else. Clarity. The mask was off. The lies were out. And what remained wasn't sadness, it was power. Because I wasn't the one hiding. And soon enough, the whole truth would be known. I had one more move left. And this time, I wasn't holding back. The day after she took her things, I filed for divorce. Clean, direct, with the full folder of evidence handed to my lawyer like a loaded gun. He flipped through it, raised his eyebrows a few times, and finally said, You've got enough here to bury her in court." "Good," I said. "Let her dig." I didn't tell Emily. I let the papers do the talking. A knock at her new boyfriend's door served while she was inside playing house with Jason and his 2 boys. I imagine she tried to smile through it, maybe called it just paperwork in front of them. But the timing wasn't accidental. I wanted Jason to see what kind of woman he'd brought into his life. The kind who turns her kid into a pawn and her husband into a backup plan. The kind who lies so much she starts believing her own rewritten memories. 2 days later, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Then I listened. It was Jason. He didn't say much, just a shaky, quiet, "Hey man, I think we should talk. Call me back when you can." I didn't let him stew. Instead, I took Noah fishing. We drove out to the lake just outside town. No cell service, no noise, just the slap of water and the occasional bird overhead. He didn't say much for the first hour. Then, while tying on a lure, he looked up and said, "Do you think she ever loved us?" I didn't lie. I think she loved the version of us that was convenient for her. He nodded. "I don't miss her," I said. "Not Emily now, but the ghost of who she used to be. The woman who danced in the kitchen while pancakes burned. The girl who cried when we brought Noah home. That version died somewhere between Jason's abs and her sudden distaste for family dinners. When we got home, there were flowers on the porch, a cheap bouquet from the supermarket, still in the plastic wrap. No note, just silence and desperation. I tossed them in the trash. Later that night, my lawyer emailed me a recording. A private investigator I hired had found something dinner. Jason and a woman who wasn't Emily. Same restaurant Emily used to love. Same smug attitude. The waitress confirmed it. He'd been coming in with the new one for a month, overlapping timelines. Karma, I guess, works fast. But I didn't tell her. Not yet. Instead, I sent her one message. "Your fairy tale is cracking. I'd stay close to home this week." She replied 10 minutes later. "What the hell are you talking about?" I left it on red. 2 nights later, I got a knock at the door late, 11 p.m. Noah was already asleep. I opened the door, and there she was. No Jason, no makeup, hoodie, leggings, hair in a messy bun butt, not the cute kind, the unraveling kind. "Mark," she started, trying to sound calm. "Can we talk?" I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. "No." She flinched. "It's important." "What? Jason dump you already?" Her lip twitched. That hit harder than she expected. "I know you sent those papers. I got them. But maybe we rushed into this." I laughed in her face. "You rushed. I watched." She took a breath. "He's not what I thought." Shocker. "I made mistakes, okay? Big ones. I see that now. You made a choice, over and over again." She got quiet. "I don't want Noah to hate me." "Then you shouldn't have brought a stranger and his kids into his home like a circus act." "I didn't know what else to do," she whispered. "That's the problem. You never think past the moment. And then this part still burns." She put her hand on my arm and said, "Maybe we could fix this. For Noah." For a second, I just stared at her. Really stared. Then I stepped back. "I already did. I fixed everything the moment you left." I turned, opened the door, and shut it in her face. She didn't knock again, but I knew it wasn't the end. No, she wasn't done yet, and neither was I. 3 days passed without a word. No flowers, no calls, no fake apologies. Then Friday came. I pulled into my driveway after work and saw her car already parked there front, wheels turned like she meant to stay. She was standing in the front yard, pacing, arms crossed, dressed to kill. Tight black dress, heels too high for grass, lipstick red enough to bleed. She looked more like she was headed to a nightclub than trying to repair a family. Noah was still at school. I had maybe 20 minutes before he got dropped off. I stepped out of the car and didn't say a word. She saw me and lit up with a practiced smile. "Mark, you look good." I walked past her toward the front door. "What do you want, Emily?" She followed me up the steps like a stray dog wearing designer. "I talked to Jason," she said casually, like we were friends again. "We decided things aren't working out. Too different. The boys didn't get along." "Tragic," I said, unlocking the door. She didn't wait to be invited and just slipped past me like the last few weeks hadn't happened. Sat on the couch like she belonged. "I've been thinking," she started, smoothing her dress. "Maybe I made a mistake." "You did make a mistake," I said. "A series of them, actually." "I wasn't myself," she said, giving that weak, wide-eyed look that used to work when she crashed my car or maxed out the credit card. "You know how lost I was. I needed attention. I needed to feel seen." I leaned against the wall, arms folded. "So you cheated, lied, humiliated me, brought a stranger and his kids into our home to replace us." She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. "And then you accused me of abuse to cover your guilt. Filed first with a lawyer to make me look unstable. Told our son he reminded you too much of me. Need me to keep going?" Her smile cracked. "I just want another chance," she said, voice trembling now. "Not for me. For Noah. He deserves a full family." I stared at her for a long time. Then I told her the truth. "I filed for full custody. You'll get visitation supervised until Noah says otherwise." She stood up, fury flashing across her face. "You can't do that." "I already did. You want to fight it? Bring your folder. I'll bring mine." She narrowed her eyes. "You think this makes you the better parent?" "No. I think sticking around through every lie, every breakdown, every empty stare, every time you locked the bedroom door because you weren't in the mood for months, I think that makes me the better parent. You were cold. You were gone. We both stood there, breathing heavy, like two boxers in the 10th round with nothing left to give but hate. Then I heard the bus. Noah. I stepped onto the porch as he climbed off, backpack half-zipped, hair messy from the wind. When he saw her, he stopped walking. "Mom?" She smiled. "Hey, baby." He didn't smile back. "Why are you here?" "I came to talk to your dad," she said sweetly. "Just grown-up stuff." He looked at me. I gave him a slight nod. He walked up the steps and stood beside me. "Are you staying?" he asked her. "I was hoping to." "No," he said. "You shouldn't." Her face broke just for a second. The fake mask dropped, and I saw it. Fear, regret, a flash of something too late to matter. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll go." She walked back to her car, heels sinking into the lawn. Before she opened the door, she turned back and said, "He'll regret this one day. He'll ask why I left." Noah answered before I could. "No, I'll remember why." Then he turned around and walked inside. I followed, closing the door behind me. And for the first time in weeks, it felt like my house again. Not perfect, not whole, but honest. And I'd take that over her version of love any day. The following week was quiet, but not in a comforting way. It was the kind of silence you know won't last, the kind that builds like pressure under the skin. On Wednesday evening, just as I was setting plates down for dinner grilled cheese and tomato soup, Noah's favorite my phone rang. Unknown number. Again. I was going to ignore it, but something in my gut told me to pick up. "Mark Taylor?" "Yes. This is Officer Daniels with the County Sheriff's Department. We received a complaint filed against you, harassment, possible endangerment of a minor." I stood there, stunned. "What?" "The complaint comes from Ms. Emily Taylor. You're listed as making verbal threats. engaging in emotionally abusive behavior, and denying access to her child. I didn't speak right away. My jaw locked tight. He continued, "We're not pressing charges at this time, but we will need a formal statement, preferably with your attorney." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "I understand. I'll have my lawyer contact you." I hung up, hands shaking. Noah looked up from the table. "What's wrong?" I forced a smile. "Nothing, just some paperwork I forgot about." I didn't tell him. Not yet. But inside, I was boiling. She wasn't done. She couldn't leave quietly. Couldn't accept that she had shattered something beyond repair and lost the only people who ever really gave a damn. Now she was trying to paint me as the villain in her unraveling little drama. The woman who waltzed out of my life with another man was now trying to brand me as a danger to my son. I called my lawyer right after dinner. He wasn't surprised. "She's cornered," he said. "She's realizing she picked the wrong side, and now she's trying to claw back control. The good news? You documented everything. Let her come." That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, running through every moment we had, every lie she told, every time I brushed it off. I should have seen this version of her long ago. But I didn't want to. I wanted to believe she was better than this, that maybe she was lost, not cruel. But she was both. And the worst part, she was still Noah's mother. That Thursday, she showed up at his school. She wasn't supposed to. The divorce papers made it clear no contact without approval. But she did it anyway. Waited until he got out, cornered him in the parking lot, and tried to convince him to come stay with her for a few days. He said no. She got angry. A teacher saw it all. By the time I got there, the principal had already called me. Noah had been escorted to the office. Emily was gone. Security footage caught enough for me to file a violation. She texted me that night. "You're turning my son against me. You'll regret this. He will too." I didn't respond. I showed it to my lawyer instead. That weekend, I sat with Noah on the couch and finally told him everything. Not the dirty details, she was too young for that, but the truth. "Your mom is going through something. She's made choices I can't protect you from anymore, but I will always make sure you're safe, no matter what she tries." He nodded. "I know, Dad. I see it." Then he said something I'll never forget. "I used to wish she'd come back. Now I hope she doesn't." I didn't know what to say. Part of me ached for him, but another part, it felt relief. He wasn't blind anymore. Neither of us were. And that Sunday, a letter arrived. Her official response through her attorney. She wanted joint custody, equal time, week on, week off. It was laughable, but I didn't laugh, because I knew this wasn't about being a mother. It was about control, about punishing me for not letting her walk away clean. She thought I'd bend, she thought I'd crack, but she forgot something important. I don't lose to liars anymore, not even the ones I once loved. Court day. I stood in front of the mirror that morning, adjusting a tie I hadn't worn since my father's funeral. I didn't wear it for Emily. I wore it for Noah. To show him that some things like dignity are worth putting back on when everything else falls apart. He wasn't with me, of course. I didn't want him anywhere near this circus. He was with my sister, probably playing Xbox, hopefully not thinking too much about what his parents were about to drag through the mud in front of a judge. My lawyer met me at the courthouse, calm, controlled, the kind of man who didn't blink even when the world was on fire. I admired that. "She'll probably play the victim," he said. "Tears, regret all that. Let her. Stick to the truth. Let the paperwork talk." Emily arrived 10 minutes later. White blouse, like she was attending communion, not combat. Hair tied neatly. Minimal makeup. Still trying to play the picture of the grieving, discarded wife. Jason wasn't with her. Not anymore. I figured that implosion happened quietly after his little side affair got exposed. Good. Let her feel what betrayal tastes like on the other end. The hearing started calm enough. Introductions. Backgrounds. Then her lawyer stood up and painted a picture so distorted I barely recognized it. Mrs. Taylor has endured emotional neglect for years. Her attempts to salvage the marriage were dismissed. She made one mistake, yes, but only after Mr. Taylor shut her out completely. Now, she seeks to restore a relationship with her son, who has been kept from her unfairly. Kept unfairly. My lawyer stood up with the confidence of a man who had all the receipts. And he did. Every message, every hotel record, every video call where Noah cried after another failed meeting or unanswered promise. The folder laid it all out, dates, times, her words, in her own handwriting. The judge looked through it silently, and when he looked up at me, I didn't see sympathy. I saw understanding. Then Emily took the stand. That's when the real theater began. Tears, shaking voice, that damn act she used every time she needed to dodge responsibility. I just want my family back, she whispered, voice cracking at all the right moments. I never meant to hurt anyone, Jason. It wasn't what it looked like. I was lost. I was empty, and Mark didn't see me anymore. She looked right at me like I was supposed to nod and apologize. I didn't move. When it was my turn, I didn't cry. I didn't tremble. I told the truth. I loved her. I gave her everything. She didn't just walk out, she detonated our family. She brought another man and his children into our home, introduced them to my son as if we were replaceable. And when it didn't work out, she tried to crawl back and paint herself as the victim. I paused, then added, but this isn't about me. This is about Noah, and all he wants is peace. That silence in the courtroom afterward was louder than any shouting match we ever had. The judge ruled 3 days later. Primary custody granted to me. Visitation every other weekend. Supervised until a child therapist confirms Noah's emotional readiness. Any violation, automatic suspension of rights. Her face when she heard it? She didn't cry. She fumed. Tight jaw. Eyes flicking from the judge to me like it was all some setup. Like justice had cheated on her too. Outside the courtroom, she caught up to me in the parking lot. You think this is over? She hissed. You humiliated me in there. No, I said. You did that to yourself. I just stopped covering for you. She leaned in close, that sickly sweet voice returning. You'll regret this. He's still my son. I didn't flinch. You had a son. And you lost him the minute you chose a stranger over him. She didn't answer, just turned around and walked off. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something I hadn't in months. Freedom. It didn't fix everything. It didn't erase the damage. But it was the first step. I picked up Noah from my sister's that evening. We drove home in silence for a while. Then he asked, did we win? I smiled. We didn't lose. And for now, that was enough. The following weeks felt different. Not lighter, not easier, just real. There were no more fake apologies, no more late-night texts twisting knives, no sudden appearances in our driveway with mascara running like war paint. She faded slowly, but surely from our everyday life. And in her absence, something unexpected started to grow. Peace. Noah smiled more, ate more, slept better. The bags under his young eyes began to vanish, and the kid who used to flinch when the doorbell rang was now humming while brushing his teeth. That was victory. Not the custody papers. That. She still tried to colonce. Twice, 3 times. Left voicemails that swung between pitiful and poisonous. I miss him, Mark. You don't have to be so cruel. You've poisoned him against me. You're disgusting. Maybe we can talk. Start over. I blocked her. Let her scream into the void where she belonged. One night, maybe 2 months after the hearing, Noah came into the living room holding an old photo album. The thick, leather-bound one Emily insisted we make when he was born. I hadn't opened it since before everything broke. He sat next to me, turned a page. Do you think she ever looks at these? I didn't answer right away. Then I said, I think she does. I think she looks at them and realizes what she lost. He nodded slowly, then pointed at a picture of me holding him in the hospital, eyes red but smiling. Emily was beside me, glowing like the world had just started. She used to be good, he whispered. People change, I said. Sometimes for the better. Sometimes into someone you don't recognize. He looked at me. I'm glad you didn't change. I smiled and ruffled his hair. I did. I just didn't break. That weekend, I took him hiking. Just the two of us. No phones, no distractions. Just the sound of boots on dirt and wind through the trees. He asked about the future. College, driving, maybe getting a dog. We planned all of it. We didn't mention her once. And in that silence, I found the closure I never thought I'd get. Because closure isn't always an apology. Sometimes it's a quiet morning, a breakfast together, a home without tension, a kid who finally feels safe again. She thought bringing Jason and his sons into our home would end us. She thought she'd break me, but instead, she gave me something she never meant to. Clarity, a clean slate, and the chance to show my son what real love looks like: solid, loyal, unshakable. So if you're reading this, and you're sitting in the rubble like I once was, wondering how it all turned to ash, listen closely. You're not broken. You're becoming. Let her leave. Let the lies fall apart. And when she comes crawling back, with regret tangled in her hair, smile. Because by then you'll know she lost the best thing that ever happened to her. And you finally be free.